Hello, this is John Speelman with my video version of column 196. My fortnightly column, which used to be an Agony column but isn't anymore. And I've called it Seeing the Whole Board. And I started by talking about how you see a chessboard if you're a strong player. Of course, it has to be a real position. If it's a problem, the pieces make sense to problemists, but not to actual players, over the board players. Given though there may be the same people, of course. But anyway, so you see it as chunks, and some of the chunks are very, very clear, and some it may not matter that much what's happening on the other side of the board if all the action is on one side. But then sometimes it can as well, as we'll get to. And I retold a little story about how Misha Tal adjourned a game in the Tashko Interzonal, which I think was in Mexico in 1985. I think I said, did I? I can't see it. 85, yeah. And he adjourned this game. He beat the tail ender, who was Said, in fact. And so he won the game. They started to have a post-mortem, and it turned out that the queenside pawns were very slightly different from what they should have been when the game was resumed. Now, I guess this shouldn't have made any difference. It had absolutely no bearing on what had occurred, and Tal had already told his opponent how to defend himself. But Said insisted that they replay. Misha Tal didn't go to an appeals committee, who I think would just have said, well, he's won the game, the guy's resigned, don't be ridiculous. But they said, all right. He said, all right, I'll play. So he won the game a second time, finishing apparently at about 3 o'clock in the morning. So in this instance, the queenside pawns weren't important as such, but of course they triggered the incident. And then I started talking about a position which I was sent recently by a guy I teach, a nice man I teach, who sent me a position which he said I hadn't realised or I hadn't picked up, was from John Nunn's, what's it called? Secrets of Practical Play or something. Secrets of Practical Play by John Nunn, which is one of his many excellent books, and was 2007. And he'd got this position, this diagram here, and the question was white to play. And I set out some questions. Given these two bishops in d3 and d4, what is the obvious thing? So what is the obvious thing to look at first, given the white bishops in d3 and d4, and why doesn't it work? How can white prepare the above continuation with an introductory? And I have I'm still proofing this slightly, so I will make it introductory rather than introductory, and I'll save this again. Move. Very difficult. Why on earth would it matter? Make a difference if the pawn were an a3 rather than an a2, the white pawn down here. And 4, we can also add, much easier, what happens if we take the a2 pawn off the board? And I suggested that you look at this yourself if you're a pretty strong player. You have to be pretty strong to be able to do this for yourself, or that you do it with an engine, but at least you try to at least not completely just hang on the engine's coattails and think about it a bit while doing it. Anyway, I'm now going to go to the database. Well, I've given a summary of the thing, of what's going on, and I'll give you the summary and then I'll give the games. The immediate double bishop sacrifice doesn't work because black can put his king on h6 and interfere with the white attack by playing knight takes f4 at a critical moment. White therefore played the deflection knight b6. In the two games I know of, black took knight takes b6, and in the double bishop sacrifice just won. But black can also try rook b8 or rook a7, both given by John Nunn, which eventually lose to a sequence in which white wins the black queen and is then able to fork king and rook. Instead, bishop b7 after knight b6 avoids this. There's now no fork at the end if white sacrifices the bishops, but white can take the exchange, which should win. And there's bishop takes c5 after knight b6 is another way to jettison the exchange, which should also lose eventually. Right, now let's look at this. Let's do these in the column. So this is this Kuzmin game. I just play the moves. It's a Taimano. You give this pawn. Knight d5. Knight d5 is an optimistic move. If you don't do it, you're going to be in some trouble, presumably, but you don't have to get mated on the spot. Knight d5. So the question was, the first question is, what happens if white plays the double bishop sacrifice? You've got these two bishops aimed like this, down here, and you've also got the queen coming in, and the rook coming in. And this is a classical situation where there is a double bishop sacrifice. So, knight b6 was played, but bishop takes pawn with check, king takes, check here. Sometimes f6 or f5 works in these circumstances. You are, after all, already a piece down. But here it doesn't, because you just play queen g6 and the game ends. And therefore you take, queen checks, king to here. White can still make a draw, of course, by giving checks, but if he goes rook f3, then you play knight takes f4, which annoyingly covers h3 and also threatens knight g6 defending. So black takes it, and now you play f5, and suddenly you can't really get round and do things. And this is just very good for black. You go check, check, presumably king g6. I don't know. Do we go king g6 or do we go king g7? We have to be a little bit careful. Can we then go rook to f6 to g6? Let's ask the engine. Even these things are quite difficult to do, but I'm guessing king g7 is okay. And then if rook f3, you can play rook f6 if you want. It says king g6, both win actually. So king g7 actually loses to queen checks. Oh, I see, sorry. And rook to there check. Please excuse me, winning the queen. So you have to go to here. You have to go, now check there's bishop g5. So you have to go rook f3, and then queen e5. And now you get your checks, but they're not really worth very much. Bishop g5. And everybody's in the middle of the board, and you're a piece up. And if queen h4, f4. So you're running out of boys, basically. Unfortunately for you. Queen h4, you could possibly, probably no, you wouldn't go queen e3 check, I don't think. Anyway, so this doesn't work. And that's the first thing. I mean, the thing is, you can see these things, but you're never quite sure about the consequences without doing a lot of work. But so the move that he came up with is knight b6, and in 2 games, knight takes b6 was played. Check here, takes. Again, f5 doesn't help. Here, bishop c5 check doesn't help either. Queen f4 is the only move. Take back. Rook f3. Queen f4 is the only move to stop mate. Rook takes f4 equals plus minus, obviously. Obviously this is plus minus. You could also play queen d8 if you wanted. Do it this way, queen d8 is another variation. Now can I actually force mate here? Not sure I can quite. But it doesn't matter, I just go here. Sorry, takes, probably with an easy win. So that's what happened in the game. So I was actually at a concert, I think I'll slightly change this. I started thinking about this. My mind was drifting during a concert, and I started thinking about the chess, which I sometimes do, and as one does, and I realised that I found this Liszt and Strauss at the festival hall. Indeed, John Lennon had already, in fact, given rook a7 and rook b8, and I started thinking, could you play one of those 2 moves? So come here. Rook b8. And okay, you don't have to play knight takes d5, but you want to if you can. So now you have to find out where to put the king so the black queen can defend, and it can go here and here. Now rook h3 check wouldn't be much good, but there's the move f5, which again forces black to give up the queen. But now you can go check here, check, and take the rook. And if the black rook was an a7, you could just play queen a4 check. The king has to be an h8, so you're able to play queen h7. So that wins both of those. Then there is another line as well, queen h5 check. And interestingly, apparently you have to go here. This is completely unobvious to a person, I think. And queen to there. And the black queen is so good in the middle of the board that apparently this is just a draw. Not at all obvious to me, anyway. Certainly not an obvious thing. You know, you think, can you somehow get the queen back into the game and give mate? But apparently not. So this is just a way to draw. So white can still just give checks, obviously, I think. Oh no, maybe he's already losing. I think he's still okay. But you have to be a little bit careful, because if the black king got to about f6, he might start to have a position. Okay, so anyway, queen h5 check, given f5 wins, it's irrelevant in this position. So that was that. And then going back to the position after knight b6, given that rook a7 or rook b8 both lose the rook eventually, there is the move bishop b7, which is perhaps the best move. And now if you go knight takes, it's quite close still. Knight takes, pawn takes, check here, takes, take. Forced. And actually this position, white's threatening queen e5 check, he's threatening queen d7, and the only move is rook to there, and then you must play bishop d8, and then you're basically okay, because you've got a back rank to annoy white with. You've also got the move rook to e6 to g6. Queen takes that, bishop a8 is basically equal. I hadn't noticed my engine was still on. But if you go bishop c5, you actually lose to this, which is quite clever. Can't go to h8 because of queen c3 check, and then this filthy move just wins. Wins outright. Because you've got queen c2 check. Have you got time? No, you have to go to g8. Queen to there check. King h7, queen to there, and you're attacking both bishops. Bishop c6, say, queen c2 check. So, but if you find bishop d8, you draw. So after bishop b7, in fact, which is what we're looking at, then the best thing to do is just to take the exchange. It's best to go queen to there first. I think knight f6, queen h4 is not going to help at all. So here, take, and now you take an a8. Good moment. Knight takes queen really doesn't work. So I don't know, rook takes a8 and some sensible move. What are we going to say? Queen g5 plus minus is actually probably promote variation, and knight takes g4. You can make some attempt to try to trap this horse, but unsurprisingly it doesn't work. I should promote knight f6 as a better move, actually. Bishop to there. Rook to there to stop knight b5. b4 takes, rook to there, bishop to there. So yeah, rook to there. You can go there, for instance, if you want to. So king here, and white wins. And even if white couldn't stay a whole rook up, he'd be winning, but this is completely clear, of course. So, that's best after bishop b7. And if we go back to the diagram again, then there's one other move. Sorry, come on, up you come. Are you now being a pain? It's possible that there's one other move, which is bishop takes c5, bishop takes c5, knight takes, and probably the best now is to do this. And basically, and the extra exchange should win since black has only one pawn and is weak on the dark squares with a compromised king. Okay. I'm going to leave that as an assessment. It's a decent-ish assessment. By the way, queen g4 is a threat, which, by the way, if knight d5, queen to there, check here takes f5, bishop b, and that's very unpleasant. So bishop b7, f6 is wins. That's a line. Yeah, it's just gone. Okay. So that is basically the normal position, or the position in the game. So then I started thinking, I was still watching this, sort of listening to this concert, and I thought, what about if you put the a pawn on a3, because that gives black an additional possible defence. And I started doing this, and it turns out that in this position, well, you have this move, this is the point, and it turns out that this move is enough to draw, which is a bit of a surprise. Because if you do this, rook takes here, bishop g5, then actually black is better now. And if you did it with the queen here, let's just check this. Where do we put this king? It doesn't matter. King h7, rook takes rook, queen takes pawn, and minus plus. So basically you have to take a draw. But there is also queen h5 check queen h7 as discussed in this position, and this is still, we should probably get another variation out of this, something like, oh, I don't know. Basically black has a very good position. So it's saying rook c3, rook h7. Is that possible? Rook c3, king g7, okay, c1, queen e4. I don't know, do it take? I mean, basically if we take, we go, d6 is very annoying. That's a very dirty trick, isn't it? Which I hadn't seen. I was thinking we're just going to play an ending, but bishop d6 is low. Okay, I mean the engine has looked at this and it tells me black has enough play, though it's not obvious to me how. So given that knight b6 doesn't work, then you can just play, you can go takes, takes, you can just go b4 or rook c1 or something, rook c1, f5, b4, I don't know. White has more than enough for the pawn. At least somewhat better. Okay. Excellent, that's that. So then, the final question, so the reason that the a2 to a3 matters is because you have rook b3. And then the other one is easy. If you got this position, without an a pawn at all, you can just bring the other rook up first. So this is actually rather trivial. You go rook a3. The only defence of any sort is knight takes, rook takes, queen takes. I put the king on h7 so that rook h3 wouldn't actually just force mate immediately. But after queen takes queen, I'm completely winning, of course. I mean, I've got a winning attack, and black is just awful. Okay, so that's not really interesting. Now, okay, that's these. So then I started thinking of analogous positions. By the way, if other people, if viewers, readers, if you can think of analogous positions where just a small perturbation on one side of the board changes how things go, then please do write to ChessBase and tell them. I don't think we have comments on the page at the moment. You can send something to the editors who can pass it on to me. Or you can go direct, actually, to jonathan@jspeelman.co.uk. Please do. So the next thing is just that this is a position which I've shown before quite recently. White to play and win. It's a bat rank thing, and if you haven't seen it before, have a little think. There's sort of basically white's got the two rooks in the c file and just needs to deflect something from covering c8, and the solution is queen a7 exclam. It's the only move to win. If, for instance, queen here, queen takes check, that defends, or if queen b4 takes here, queen to there, h6, black's better. So it is queen a7, bishop d5 is about the best you can do, takes, rook to there, check. And then the question is, what happens if you move this pawn to h3? Why is this different? And analogously to what we just looked at in the game Kuzmin-Sveshnikov, the advance of the pawn a square has weakened the square that it originally controlled. You can't move pawns backwards, and that means that queen a7 loses to rook takes g3 check. If rook takes rook, or king f1 is ridiculous. If rook takes rook, just queen takes queen, and there aren't enough rooks on the c file. Bad luck. Bishop b2, probably just f6 is the simplest. Just give back the queen for rook and bishop if you like, and then win with the a pawn. Easy. Okay. And if pawn takes, you've opened this diagonal. Here to here. And so queen takes queen is check. Black wins. So there we are. So that was this one. And then I've got a very, very trivial thing really. Just saying, in this position, white to play, the simplest thing is to go queen h6 check and queen takes queen check at a4. Let's just do it. Queen to there, check, queen to there, takes, a4, takes. And if we do the square of the pawn, sorry, I need an alt, don't I? If we do the square of the pawn, then the black king can't get into it. And then, but if I change this very slightly, if I put this pawn here, then now queen takes queen is only a draw because of the slight perturbation on the queen side. Black now takes the opposition, and the white can't get up. We'll play some more moves. I suppose we'll do it here, 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 here. Sorry, excuse me, I pressed the wrong button obviously. Equals is what I meant to press. And but you just swap on g8 now, and then you're able to get your king to f4, after which it's pretty simple. I mean, he can go here. If he goes here, we just do this. Yeah, it doesn't help. and you win. So again, just changing the queen side, but it's not a trivial difference at all whether you can create a passed pawn or not. So making the a pawn backward is not a trivial change, but it does change the square you exchange the queens on. And then I thought, well, this isn't that substantial a column, so I'll show you something I've been showing all and sundry recently. Anybody I teach, anybody who will listen, I said. And it's a lovely study by Leonid Kubel. Sorry. So wait a minute. We start here with replay training, and it is white to play and draw. And this is the position. So you can either play h7 at once, or you can play bishop f2 check. There's nothing else much to consider, I think, because you're about to queen a pawn. So if h7 check, the king doesn't have a square, knight to there, and that prevents the pawn from queening. Or if you go here, this queen's with check, or if you go to g4, you play knight f6 check. So you start with bishop f2 check, king h1, not king f1, 2 question marks, new variation, 2 question marks, bishop c4 mate. Where are 2 question marks? There they are. Bishop, sorry, I'm so blind. Bishop c4 mate. So you have to go into the corner. Now you play h7, c2 check. All of the king moves now lose the same way they did, so you play bishop e3. It is a study. You take it, the king goes back that way. You have at least freed the square for the king by your clevernesses. And also king f4, pawn equals queen, didn't help at all. Right. Rook to there. Now if you play pawn takes knight equals queen, rook checks, king f3, pawn equals queen, there are no checks, and the queen and the rook and the pawn win. So you do this as you would, and then you take it. It's left to give check. And now the beautiful finish, queen to there, check, rook takes queen. Stalemate, exclam. Beautiful study by Leonid Kubel. He's just a genius, this guy. I've got a book of his games, which I've been showing to people at the end of lessons. You know, not just when I run out of things to do, but it's a sweetie, isn't it? It's something nice at the end of concentrating to suddenly have something very beautiful, even if you have to work a little bit to uncover the beauty. Okay, I hope you have enjoyed this column. I've enjoyed making it. It is now, I'm doing this on Saturday morning. Isn't that a splendid siren going off outside my window? There is a fire station and just about 200 metres away from me or something, 150 to 200 metres. So we do get sirens quite a lot up this road. And okay, I hope you've enjoyed it. The next one, I think that there is probably, what are we today? It'll be the 18th. So the next one will be on Sunday, July the 2nd, won't it? Right. Okay, I'm going to stop now. And I'm going to check again that we are recording, because if we're not, I'm going to scream. And we are. And see you in a fortnight.